Hello. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Role Playing Guys. This is Spencer hopping in here for another quick intro. As you know, this is the review episode of Season 5, which is pretty awesome because it means that we got through another season, another game, another monumental campaign that we're able to make it through and not die? I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of a question mark. With one season ending, that also means that another season is about to begin. For Season 6, we are doing a hodgepodge of miscellaneous games that we are testing out for some awesome game developers that have sent us their games. And that reminds me, if you are developing a game and you want your game tested other than the immediate group of friends that you have, send it our way. We love to test the games that we receive, and we love to give feedback on those games. That's kind of our shtick. We do that for not a living, for a hobby. We do it for a hobby. We don't make money doing this. It's kind of pitiful. Additionally, if you haven't followed us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube yet, you definitely should. We'd like to post a lot of awesome content there consistently, which will give fuel to your campaigns and your games that you are playing. So definitely check us out there. It is totally worth it. After Season 6, there is obviously a Season 7, which means that we need a game for that. If you have any suggestions of games, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us, DM us on any of our social media. Our email is rolepg13@gmail.com. You can also find us on Discord if you are so inclined. Finally, thank you so much to our patrons over on Patreon. You guys are the Jenny to our Forrest. Without you, we'd just be running across America, not making much sense, and saying things like boxes of chocolates and shrimp. Anyway, that's all I got. Let's get to the episode. I can't believe that I almost forgot this, but before we get to the episode, I also wanted to say a quick thing about the pandemic that's going on in the world. Try to get your information from reliable sources like the World Health Organization. Those people actually know what they're talking about. Don't listen to people who are conspiracy theorists and don't have medical training. Listen to the professionals. Stay quarantined. Wash your hands, cover your coughs, social distance, etc. Just be smart about this, and we'll get through this. Anyway, let's get to the episode for the second time.
Guys, welcome back.
Thanks.
To the review of Wrath and Glory. We just finished the season finale. It was super intense. I hope everyone loved it. But today, we're joined by Spencer,
hey,
who played Renee. We have Nick, who played Maximilian.
Hello.
And we have Dani, who played Tulrian or Tul Renee, depending on...
Tul Renee, yes. Or Hugo Weaving.
Or Hugo Weaving. If you still want to go with that, that's still acceptable. But yeah, welcome, guys. We're going to go over our review of the system, Wrath and Glory. We're going to go through the criteria that we've been using for the last couple games. So let's dig into it. We can start with... Does anyone want to say anything about the season or anything before we get into the review?
I thought the season was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it.
That was a fun little time.
Yeah, it's another successful season, I say. We played a game, we learned it, mostly, and had fun.
Yeah, even by the last episode, though, we're still screwing up hard. And people are, if they know the game, could write us and say, you did it wrong. And I'd be like, probably.
As far as I know, I don't know if we've ever actually had people tell us that straight up that we were doing something wrong. I mean, not that we haven't. We certainly have. But I haven't seen anyone actually reach out to us.
I just think we're so small that no one really cares, right?
I guess it just means that we're infallible, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Or we're
always
everything.
Perfect.
It was great to have Dani back. I love that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thank you.
Loved it. You just bring so much energy and excitement. It's just great.
It sucks that your schedule is getting busy, but, I mean... It was great to have you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Indeed.
So yeah, I guess we'll dig into it. We'll start off. I guess I'll kind of be the leader of the discussion, I guess, since I ran the season. The facilitator. We'll start with the general setting and concept. Who wants to give their rating first? We got 1 through 10. 10 being the best you've ever done in your whole life. 1 being this is a pile of...
I will go if that is chill. Mm-hmm. So my ranking for this one is a bit odd, and I gave it a 3 or a 7. Reason being is that since it's Warhammer 40k, coming into the system, it is a lot more interesting if you already have a background in it. Otherwise, because Warhammer 40k has vast lore that's established, coming into it without any knowledge of it, it can be kind of hard to digest. And I don't know. So at least for me, as somebody who like is moderately in the world of Warhammer 40k, like understanding, it can kind of be a little bit off-putting if you're not in it. So a 3 or a 7.
So 3 if you knew nothing. 7
right.
is
7,
if you knew
7
some
if
good
you're
amount
into
of
it.
stuff.
And it's not higher than that because I think they don't do the best job of adding to the world. That's just my thing.
All right. So we got Dani. Nick, you want to go next?
Sure. I gave the general concept and setting an 8. This game setting is honestly perhaps the biggest selling point of this game. I mean, that's probably the reason why many people would want to play it. It has long, complex history, both within the game's universe and in the real world. Like Warhammer's been around for a while. If you add the titular mechanics, the Wrath and Glory points, and you have, I mean, you honestly have me quite interested because, Warhammer 40k can be really cool. So I think the concept and setting themselves are excellent. And the fact that the mechanics are made equally complex does contribute to the overall feel of the game in a, I mean, we're going to learning curve after this, but for setting alone, just for the general concept, I think it's generally positive. Obviously, it's not perfect, and I will agree with Dani that your familiarity with the setting would likely affect its appeal for you. But again, it's strong on the general concept thing. Like a lot of it's built on that, so that's why I give this an 8.
All right, Spencer, you're up, man.
For me, I would probably give it an 8 as well. When I think about general concept and setting, I like to compare it to other games that I've heard of in my limited knowledge of TTRPGs. And for me, I don't feel like there's another game like Wrath and Glory that is built in that universe. And I feel like the Wrath and Glory universe in general is pretty outstanding, like Nick was saying and Dani was saying, in terms of depth and breadth. There's a huge amount of like fan fiction out there as well of the subject. And I think what Dani is saying about it being off-putting is accurate, that if you don't know the system, it can be really off-putting. But I also think that's true of any other game system, if you think about it. Like Dungeons & Dragons has the whole god system that if you want to get into it, you can get into it, but you don't have to for the game itself. And I think even though the world of Wrath and Glory is vast, it isn't necessary in order to appreciate the game. I only think that it enhances the game itself.
Yeah, and I kind of agree that for my rating, I put 9, but I like Warhammer stuff, so I'm biased. I put 9 just because in terms of the next thing it's close to, which is sci-fi, it still is very unique compared to just generalized sci-fi stuff that we see.
Agreed.
So even if
it's a lot grittier.
Mm-hmm, even if we do, even if we don't know the lore in the world, like you said, you can still play the game, create your own stuff, and it would still work very well. I do agree that it is kind of off-putting for people to play into a world where they don't really know everything. And I guess that's kind of why I made that kind of lore / background document so you guys could read it. So they do that in the book. They do kind of give you a brief history and everything on that. So that does help if you want to take the time to read it. It is a lot, but at least gives you kind of an update of where you are, what the world's like, everything like that. But concept-wise, I think it's really unique. And as we see, it's a huge business and game in the world. So you kind of see it builds on that. So awesome. We did the general concept. We'll go into learning curve. I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of us. So we'll start with Mr. D.
For this one, I'm giving it a solid 3. I don't think the game is easy to pick up and learn. It's easy to roll a bunch of D6s, but as a natural result of the rule book itself being scattered about everywhere
across the universe,
looking for, because world. Like they tried to pick out bits and pieces from the Warhammer 40K miniature war games, like rules, like keywords. And it's like those keywords are fine, but you scatter them out everywhere, and I don't feel like they're ever well defined and described all in one place without scouring through an index that is also severely limited in what is actually listed there. So like actually learning to play the game, hugely difficult. It's almost as if the game doesn't want you to learn how to play the game. That's how I feel. Really at the end of the day, it was just like, okay, I have a number, I'm going to roll some D6s and Tyler's going to tell me what happens. Because I didn't care to look up all of the minutia of the other things that I could be doing, because I was like, I know that if I find that, I'm going to be spending 20 minutes to try to find it again. So that's me, 3 out of 10.
All right. I feel similar to Danny's opinion. I gave it a 2, actually.
Nice.
The strength of the Warhammer 40K setting, which is its complexity and its breadth, is unfortunately the downfall of the mechanics of this game, I think. Again, like that, we talk about the handbook. Like, it seems the handbook itself seems very indicative of the Warhammer 40K universe in general. It's not impossible, but what was it, like a 400 plus page
like
player's handbook?
Plus.
That makes the game so heavy, quote unquote heavy, that we honestly had a hard time incorporating even some essential mechanics correctly. Case in point,
Wrath and Glory.
Soak, well, yes, but also
Mob
soak,
rules.
shock, and wounds. Took us a while to hammer that out. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll agree with both Danny and Nick. This definitely felt like the type of game that if you're a rules lawyer or a lawyer in general, you might love, because it is just a huge amount of reading and things can be interpreted in 50 different ways. I think that happened quite a few times when we were reading through things. I wouldn't go so low as a 3 or a 2, but I would give it a 4 because I did enjoy the learning of it. I thought it was interesting that there were so many rabbit holes to go down, even though it was a complicated game. And like Danny, I think the way that it could be improved is the organization of it more than anything else. I don't feel like the rulebook was intuitively put together, so it was difficult. And I felt like the complexity in the game lent to why it is a fun game to play, but at the same time, and a game that you can keep playing, because as opposed to a lot of other simpler games, it's really easy to learn the basic rules and then that's what you're doing. Like, you're just rolling dice at that point. But the fact that there's a lot of moving parts to this game, I liked about it. But still, learning curve 4 because of, like Danny said, it fights you to learn it.
Yeah. I was going to go with like a 4 also. Like the rule book, like everyone said, is terrible. I think it would have been very hard for us to play it if I had not made that rules reference document. So I literally read through the rule book and noted down everything that was important. So I agree. The rules are kind of tedious. Some of the mechanics are a little tedious, but I feel like it is unique. The ideas and the concepts, they were trying to implement. So I would say like a 4 also on the rules, but you guys hit all the major points already, so I'll just reiterate what you guys said. Next was character creation. How did you guys feel about that? 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Tell us how you really feel, Danny.
It's a 1 out of 10. Of every role-playing game I've ever played, this game has the most inept setup for creating a character that I have ever seen. It is purposefully difficult. Again, just another, like, at least for me, an indicator that's like, the guys that developed this game didn't actually care about people playing this game, which is why it failed.
Oh my word.
Well, I mean,
so character creation, 1 out of 10.
That hot fire right there.
I actually maybe I just had a different approach with character creation in general. But
did you use Tyler's character creation walkthrough?
Well, yeah, but like.
I remember me and Danny did not use it.
We
were going through it together.
Because it is an entirely different process.
With just the book.
If you are not using Tyler's walkthrough.
Okay. Well, so,
True.
I mean, all right, fair enough. I guess, unfortunately, although I did think about that for the learning curve thing, for some reason I did not think about that during the character creation bit. I'll read to you what my comments are of that, and I'll tell you my score afterward, and hopefully that makes more sense. So the archetypes, the kind of classes in this game, they're understandably locked behind certain species, but there are a lot of options. So in spite of the complex mechanics, character creation, I thought that, like, besides the plethora of options in species and archetypes, there were tables that had formulas and stuff for each of the. Like if you wanted to do point buy and things like that, there were a lot of tables, which honestly I found rather helpful. And the archetypes also had enough variety to please just about anyone interested in this grim, dark setting. So with all of those considerations, that's why I gave this a 7.
Wow.
Man.
Talk about discrepancy.
That's wild. Because personally for me, I thought all of their tables were absolute trash. That's me.
Okay.
That's me. But hey, this is why we're doing this. We all have our different personal opinions.
True.
But it is curious to see that you got a lot more out of them than I did. I hated them. But that's me.
Fair enough. I do understand. I think we all understand.
I would give this character creation probably like a 5. It wasn't until I was going through it again with Nick that it seemed to actually like stick and make a bit of sense. I agree that some of the tables are useless, but and that's just, I think, a lack of understanding of how to make a workable table, something that's accessible to the user of it, because they provide a lot of information, but they're tricky to understand what information they're trying to provide. I thought the process, there are so many options, like Nick was saying, but I don't feel like there was a ton of purpose behind the options. I feel like in other games where you have an archetype or you have a race or something like that, I think there is a lot of distinction between races, but not so much archetypes. Like one archetype could easily be the same as another archetype, and there's a lot of overlap in that, and that's where I saw issue more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it a 6. I like the amount of stuff that you can make your character with. I agree with Danny giving it a 1 because when I was creating the document, I had to go all over the place to grab information to make the characters and to find the formulas for the different stats. But I mean, the archetypes, there's tons of different ones that let you role play and make different characters. I agree with Spencer saying that there are limited, like each one gets like a special ability and that's about it. But then on top of that, the equipment, I think, is one of the strong points of the game. They have a large table of different weapons that have different abilities, different keywords, and different equipment that does a lot of stuff that we didn't really touch too much on just because we didn't have the time to do it. So it wasn't amazing. There's a lot of things they could change to make these different classes and the different races more unique, but they did a pretty decent job, I think. So now we'll go into balance. Balance, I gave it a 9, but that's just me.
Hey, out of order, man.
All right, D.
Balance. For whatever reason, I had combat next on my list, but balance.
It's man. Because I didn't send a complete list. That's on me.
That's totally fine. Balance. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I think they're like the game to me, and this is going to be something that's probably going to come up frequently in my critique of the game, is internally things feel inconsistent a lot of the time. Like from what I was able to observe, where it's like, okay, either the thing you're going to be facing for your tier is really hard, or very easy. And there didn't feel like there was a lot of in between. It's either you have a boss or you have minions, which is okay if that is what the game is trying to get at. But in terms of overall balance, it didn't feel like it kind of felt binary in that way. But I would also say, like, a reason why it's a 5 and not lower is that pretty much across the board, I felt as though our characters, probably as a result of the point purchase system, they felt equally powerful. So that's a selling point for them. The characters feel equally powerful, but in terms of power balance of monsters and enemies, it could use some work.
Oh yeah, I agree.
For balance, I gave it a 6. So each of our 3 main characters had their own strengths, and I felt like each of us were fairly useful in our own right. I'll admit that there were times where my character didn't feel as strong as the others, but it also could be because of the way I sort of built and played him. Maybe Skitarii was not the best like archetype for the kind of concept I had. Who knows? In any case, regardless, I would expect a grimdark setting to be difficult for the players anyway. And so I did feel like, although the combat that we couldn't avoid did feel possible for us to beat, it still felt difficult. So appropriately difficult, I thought. So yeah.
I think that testifies more to the quality of Ty as a GM than anything else.
Quite possibly. But I mean, like with our character like looking at our character abilities, it didn't feel too off balance. But although I will say I did feel like since I was focusing on melee, I had to go for like almost a legendary weapon to feel as useful as like, you know, using warp magic or something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say that this was a 5 for me. And I think something that we messed up was our understanding of value and worth in this game, because that also plays into the items that we should have been able to purchase from the get-go. And I think that kind of screwed us up, because I felt like we're typically used to like a legendary item or a rare item meaning something, but that isn't really the case according to their value. So I think that kind of skewed us a little bit. But I also rate it low because I felt like there was still quite a bit of overlap in what we did and who we were. And I think outside of that, if you were to add any more characters to the party, it would have been even more overlap, and the game would have been hindered for that reason. Because of like what I said with how all the archetypes are more or less the same at the end of the day, I think that affects the balance in a negative way. Because even though you can customize it a bunch of different ways with titles, it didn't really feel like there was a whole ton of like diversity in skills or uniqueness in skills that were different but equivalent in power.
Yeah, so now that you guys brought up some stuff, I actually lowered my score. So I had it at 9 just thinking about characters, like your player characters, because they were pretty balanced. At least when I was fighting you guys and doing things, it seemed like they were very balanced. But I dropped it to a 6 because if I'm thinking about like combat balances, which we'll talk about later in the combat section or in the GMing section, that wasn't really easy to do, as you guys could see. But I mean, playing wise, I thought characters very equal, but almost too equal. So it kind of, like you said, does hurt the game because everyone can do kind of everything unless you play a campaign that maybe has more variety. We were kind of more doing like investigative, combat-y tech stuff. So I feel like it was kind of limited maybe because of how narrow our story focus was. But I mean, if we had more space combat or more interacting with people, then maybe there would be more difference between the characters. But so 6 for me. So next we got combat. Gameplay,
where
combat.
we spent most of our time.
Yeah.
Where we spent most of the time.
Yeah.
Combat land.
For me, this one is also a 5 out of 10. Not because the combat is bad, but because the combat as a part of the difficulty of getting through all of the rules and looking through everything and like the way that the stuff is spread out, like looking at all of the different things I want to do in a combat round is difficult to do unless you like condense it out and like make yourself a little table of here are the things you can do for an action, and here are the things that you have to do in a different way, and so on. So like that's just kind of a pain in the tuchus. So for me, a 5. Not bad, but not like
amazing.
And not amazing. Yeah, it isn't pushing us into new frontiers of RPGs.
Yeah. I also gave it a 5. The options were there. There are lots of things you could do with combat. Although, good gracious, it took us a while to even fully understand the differences between shock, soak, and wounds, and how exactly to use all of those. Perhaps combat would be easier for those familiar with Warhammer games. As we discussed, it seems like, among other things, the people who made this... What?
No. Don't like...
No. Nope.
Don't include me in that.
All right. It was confusing for us at times. So, yeah. The potential is there, but there are lots of things that we either didn't understand or didn't bother with.
See, this is where I disagree with you guys. I think that I would put it at an 8 for similar reasons, because I think if you print out something like your skills and the abilities that you have of like the special words for the weapons, I think that makes a huge difference to not have to like look through the book. So you have a sheet that says sniper has this ability and then aim has this ability and like things like that. If you print that out and come up with that sheet, which requires legwork for the players, but if you have that, it allows you to do a lot more. And I feel like I tried to do that with a lot of the skills that I had to be able to just like quickly reference. And I know I wasn't quick at all, but I was able to a little bit more easily access those things to be able to say that I want to do this. But I think that it also was good because it wasn't a constant, like, it made more sense combat-wise than a lot of other games. Like, you can be hit, but you not necessarily take damage. I like the dynamic of shock and soak. I thought that was a really awesome thing of being able to, like, have combat be more than just, like, I hit him with a spell or with an arrow, and it does X amount of damage, period, next person. Because I think that gets really boring to play. But with this, where it's a dynamic system where you're able to work more with the DM or the GM in what's going on, I think that it was a more robust system. And I think that also there were a lot more actions that you could do in combat rather than a spell or a weapon attack.
Yeah, I agree with Spencer. I gave it a 7. Combat, I think it plays into the system and it plays into the lore, because generally, you know, Warhammer is all about war and battling, and I think they did a very good job on the ideas and the concepts. Maybe some things are a little bit hard to learn, but I think once you learn it, it's pretty easy to just, okay, I need to roll this many dice, I soak this many wounds. But I do like how they have like the interaction attacks where you can kind of have freedom to choose what you want to do. There's all like the list of combat options that give you like more dice or do more damage.
The wrath die.
And then there's all like the wrath die, you know, the glory points to add to your pool to do more damage. There's combat effects for each weapon. You know, like does bleed or does toxic, it does this or that. So it is very heavy, and it does require, like you said, legwork to get into it and underdo it like quickly. But it does add variety to the battling. At least I think. Did they do it 100% perfectly well, like we've been saying in the rules? No, but they did a pretty decent job. And the combat was, I think, fun. If not, maybe sometimes a little clunky. But 7.
Do we want to go on to exploration or Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so we got exploration and roleplay.
Yeah, let's go to exploration. Exploration. Oh, man. And maybe it's just because it's not a mechanic that we used too much, and might just come down as well to my understanding and like familiarity with the setting. I don't think that the exploration was very or is very strong as it stands in the rulebook, and it kind of translates into the game because it is a Warhammer game. Like it's about getting into the next fight, and so the exploration, what it felt like to me, was more of Tyler creating these interesting things to happen and trigger and so on as we were playing, versus the game mechanics themselves allowing for like the creation of interesting setups. So I gave it a 3 out of 10 for exploration. I wasn't super impressed with that aspect of it, and also just like when it comes down to only like an awareness check to see everything around you. I don't know. Like I think there's more that they could do to improve upon it. Not perfect. A lot of room for improvement.
I also do think that is a lot of just being my fault. Just like the campaign setting, not really knowing all the rules 100%. I think also kind of apply into like why exploration maybe wasn't as used as much. But I do agree the fact that there's not really too many rules about exploration, and it's more of kind of a combat-focused game. So I can see why you feel the way that you do. I don't know if it would be. At least my personal score isn't a 3, but
I would probably have to play some more.
Yeah.
And in a campaign setting where the exploration was a little bit more of a focus, because then I could see. I can see from a role-playing standpoint a GM being like, okay, you've gone into a server maintenance facility, roll a tech check for your awareness type of a thing, and like adding different variabilities on like the actual skills that are there to kind of add some depth to what people are doing mechanically, but. That's just for my experience with it so far. I think it can use some work.
Yeah.
I gave exploration a 4 here. I do like the simplicity of it, at least what we were using. Similar to D&D, you roll an applicable skill check, basically, and that's pretty much it. So I do appreciate that, in a game that's so complex in basically every other way, exploration wasn't too hard. But it also just wasn't much of a focus either. Like Danny, I was not like, I kind of thought, well, regarding exploration, that's kind of it. There's really not much more. It's kind of up to the GM to decide whether exploration is even much of a focus at all. So there we go, 4.
I really disagree, because the way that I interpret exploration is the amount of skills that you use and just like the game in general. And I think compared to a lot of games like Pathfinder that I've played, or to Dungeons and Dragons and Numenera, it seems like those rely on like the same 3 skills. Whereas this game, I thought that there was a lot more that you could use. Athletics was used more, awareness was used more, deception, cunning, insight. Like, I felt like the skills that were on the list were actually able to be used in a reasonable way, and maybe not specifically for this campaign because it wasn't the focus, but a campaign could have a lot more things like that, like a pilot skill or a stealth skill. Like, a lot of those things could be used more. I know that I relied heavily on stealth, but I think that there are or stealth and tech, but I think that there were a lot of times that other skills could be used. So I would give this at least a 6. I would give it a 7. The same thing that I gave to Pathfinder and I think Dungeons and Dragons.
I gave it a 5, and I think you guys hit it. I think it's kind of hard because exploration, these different gameplay settings are more based on the campaign and your GM. Because me, personally, I'm not a really big roleplay or exploration kind of person. And so, I'm more combat focused and maybe story driven, maybe. So exploration was kind of just a a tool to be able to use to progress the story along, I felt like. And maybe if we did play a campaign that was more open world, that you could go and do whatever you wanted, I feel like exploration could be pretty well. So I gave it a 5 because it's not like anything unique, but it's not bad also. So we'll go into role playing. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, that it's kind of hard to get into the system if you don't really know much of the lore. So we'll kind of take that into account also. But since a lot of us were novices to the lore of Warhammer 40K, then that's a lot of good feedback for people who maybe haven't gone into it before.
Yeah. For me, it was I had the same scores as I gave to concept and setting, a 3 or a 7. Just because of those exact things that you just talked about, Ty, where it in terms of playing a character in a fleshed out world, if you don't know the minutia of the details of the Ulthwé Eldar being the damned living next to the Eye of Terror versus some other person in this scattered galaxy, like there are a lot of character dynamics that can be brought into it that if you're not aware of and you're in a setting where you want to play heavily to the world, then it can be very difficult. On the other hand, if you are just wanting to play in a universe and do your own thing with it, then it's loose. It's pretty open to interpretation of what you want to do. You can basically be a human, an elf, or an orc. Like that's what there is.
Superhuman, bare bones.
Pretty bare bones, and you can kind of
human,
robot.
Superhuman, super
Right.
duper human, elf or orc.
True.
And you just kind of like paint by numbers what else you want for your character to make it your own. So I mean, I don't think in terms of like lore and whatnot that it's anything super special for role playing. Let me restate, Warhammer 40K is a universe that is like has lore built into it and people love it because of the lore. I don't see people enjoying playing this game if they're playing at a table with a bunch of people that are into Warhammer 40K. If they're not, personally, just because it's like, all right, they're all getting into this stuff. Why are they talking about chair daddy so much? I don't get it. Why do they care about this emperor? Fill in the blanks, please. So like, so that's me. 3 or a 7 out of 10. Not the best, not the worst, but pretty good.
I gave this one a 4 as well. The game, as we've said before, feels much more combat heavy than other games, mostly because the characters tend to be more suited for combat situations anyway. That's kind of like that's the thing of Warhammer. It's war, hammering the land and space and whatever. I don't know where I was going with that. Credit where it's due, though. There is a small background section on the character sheet that can help you set up a backstory and a character for your character if you want. Like, you can have like a mysterious trinket or something, or have like goals or things like that. Perhaps it would, and also, going along with the whole thing about this is Warhammer 40K, perhaps it would be easier for me to roleplay in this game if I had a much deeper understanding of the setting. And like, we had some fun role-playing moments, but there were times where I was just kind of, obviously, roleplay is like improv and reaction and stuff, but I didn't feel as confident in my improv sometimes because I realized I didn't know exactly what would a standard Skitarii think in this situation or say in this situation. Well, this is what Maximilian says. So, yeah, there you go.
I agree. 4 is similar to what everybody else said, but I think that good role-playing depends a huge amount on the group. And I'm not saying 4 because it was a bad group to play with. I'm saying that 4 because...
Oh, it'd be like a 10 because of this group.
Yeah,
honestly,
I thought the group was fun and everybody played super, super well. It was just tricky, like Dani said. Huge amount of lore that was quite inaccessible to somebody who's working full-time and has a life outside of the podcast.
How dare you?
Wait, what?
Sorry, everyone.
No, I agree with everybody. I gave it a 5. Kind of just average. Either it could be killer and you guys can be totally into it. If everyone loves Warhammer and knows everything about it, then it's like, yeah, everyone's in, everyone knows. Or it can be like half people know and it's just awkward, or it's like no one knows and they're like, why are we playing this game? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, role-playing 5. GMing is kind of my section. Holy crap. I
2.
It was a very hard game to GM. I would give it probably a 2 or 3. I'd say 3. I love Warhammer stuff, like the lore, the worlds, all that stuff. Cool, but the game is very difficult to run. Luckily, like you guys had the rulebooks also, and you could help me find stuff pretty quickly. So if we needed it, so shout out to Spencer and you guys for helping out with that. But it's just like so many small rules that change things, and then combat is clunky for players. It's even clunkier
I can't
for
imagine
the GM. So I mean, it's like you roll tons of dice, and then you have to calculate the APs and the damage until eventually I was just like, I'm just going to do flat damage for, you know, people who I'm controlling. Because if you get more and more people, it's just more and more dice flying all over the place. And my paper was just filled with math at the end of that battle. It was just filled to the brim. Rules-wise, kind of sucked. But lore-wise and like playing the game, I thought was great. Monster manual, really weak. At least in the initial book, they didn't have that much that I thought was usable. There's a lot of really random stuff that I was like, why didn't they just add kind of the more generic stuff that you would use more? So I had to end up creating a ton of homebrew monsters to kind of make things more interesting instead of just fighting like orcs all the time. So rule-wise, not good. Monster manual, really bad. Could use a lot more stuff. The stat blocks are kind of complicated to read sometimes. Man, I got all sorts of stuff, but I don't want to bore you all. But formatting, difficult. GMing. It was fun always GMing with you guys and playing with you guys. So that's what made it good. But I would say like a 3 for GMing. Really difficult. Cost. We're going into cost now.
This is a funny subject for this particular game.
It is. So generally, if you searched Wrath and Glory and you were looking at the prices of the books that are available to purchase, I give it a meh out of 10. Things are pretty expensive, not too easily accessible, and the reason why is because this version of the game is not being printed anymore. We talked a few weeks ago about how Cubicle 7 acquired Wrath and Glory and is remaking it. And so Cubicle 7 is going to be creating a new rulebook for it, which you will eventually be able to purchase. But as it stands right now, the original developers of it, whose names I do not recall.
It's Ulysses Grant.
That's a president.
It actually is that though. Here, let me just double check. I'm gonna double check.
Anyway, was that it, Danny?
Yeah, well, Ulysses S. Grant isn't making games anymore, or at least no longer is doing Wrath and Glory. So it's
Beale International, I think it is.
Ulysses Beale International. Yeah, so they're just not making it anymore. So if you do find it, it's gonna be from a third party or on Amazon. People selling it for a markup on the retail price. So it's steep. My recommendation is to find a purchasable PDF somewhere, or find a friend who has it.
Or don't buy it.
Or
don't buy it.
Or
Don't support them.
Wait to see what Cubicle 7 makes, because hopefully,
I'm excited.
Hopefully, Cubicle 7 would make something better, but that still like captures the, what people want from the universe. Anyway, what I did was I did 5. So for now, for a second, putting aside the fact that it is out of print, it seems to be about the kind of price you'd expect. I think we were talking earlier, like Player's Handbook was like what, $70, which is a lot for like the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook for 5th edition is $50, and that's usually what you expect between $30 and $50. Although, well, $50 in a physical store. I've seen it, $30 on Amazon for D&D books. So 30 to 50, something like 60 or 70 would be a bit much, but at the same time, this is a very, very lengthy player's handbook. So for this particular game, so 5. That's why I give it a 5. It's just like, okay, that's the kind of cost I would expect from that, from a heavy game like this.
I give it I give it a 2, because the thing is, like, even if you get their core rulebook, it still feels like you need so much more to be able to actually play the game. Like,
good point.
And to have a GM in charge of the game. So I give it a 2, because in addition, $70 is a lot to shell out for a game that's so disorganized.
Yep.
And feels incomplete.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point.
Yep.
I gave it like a 3 just for that same reason. Like, I feel like due to the formatting issues of the book, it was filled with a lot of crap that probably could have been condensed down to maybe like a 200, 300 page book. Like, I made that rules reference page and it was long, but I mean, it had the basics. And then that character one wasn't really that long either, but you could condense it. It's lacking a lot of monsters. It has like a good amount of weapons and items, but like not enough for $70. And that's all you're getting, really. So
you don't get
money
wise.
wise, I would, if you want to play it, go with the PDF, like we've said, just because it's going to be cheaper, easier to search through than a physical book sometimes.
I can see now that I am far too forgiving in this particular category, because I apparently forgot some of these things. But yeah, there you go.
I'm a bit of a jerk when it comes to that.
And then I guess the last one is sustainability.
Before our overall
just like
story,
how long you can play. Is it worth, can you play it for multiple times, multiple characters? What do you guys think?
Man, for me, I gave it a 3 out of 10, coming from the perspective of somebody who played it at like the way that the campaigns are broken down. You kind of pick a tier level and you play within that tier. You make characters in that tier and you fight monsters made for that tier, essentially. And so at tier 3, which we were in, it was good. But what I could say is if we kept playing it, unless things were continued to be homebrewed heavily, it would just run into like the same repetitive combats with the same orcs, same alien dudes, same cultists, same whatever, just time and time again. So like unless you're playing a highly variable game where you're moving from tier to tier frequently throughout your campaign, like you're moving through different phases of a larger story, I would say it's not highly sustainable. But unless if you are moving through like tier by tier and doing more with it, then I might give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. But as it stands, 3 out of 10.
All right, this is where I once again have a very different score. I think honestly it owes a lot to the setting, which I think you could do a lot with Warhammer 40k just because there is so much information. There's complexity, not just in mechanics, but in this case, in like the kinds of, I was going to say the kinds of challenges, but Tyler did mention that the monster manual was rather limited. I gave this a 9 for sustainability, probably because I was mostly thinking of the fact that this is Warhammer 40k and you can do a lot with the setting itself. There's enough complexity in the setting to justify a longer campaign, perhaps, especially if you do decide to move up through the tiers, go from tier 1 and then move up to tier 5 and stuff. So there is that potential there. Although I can also see how you can easily make a sort of militaristic, spacefaring sort of campaign that can be, like this season was, smaller and episodic.
I give it a 6 or 7 range, because I think that kind of like you guys have said, there is a lot of potential and it plays into it itself really well. Like Dani was saying, monsters and challenges are built for specific tiers. So I think in that way it does play really well into what it's supposed to do, which is have combat and actions and everything for a specific tier. like Nick was saying, though, and surprisingly what Ty was saying, like, with such a wide range of what the universe is, there seems to be a lot of limited actual material to be able to play with, unless you do homebrewing. I think it would be interesting because you could do, with the universe being so massive, like that gives birth to lore things like, even on the same space shuttle that we were on, we could have done, instead of one character, jumped around to multiple characters and played multiple characters to get experience at different tiers. And I think that would be an interesting thing that this game offers, that I think it is a somewhat sustainable game, but not a great game that could be played forever.
Yeah. Mine's kind of varied like Danny's. I gave it a 6 with how it is right now, like nothing special. But if you're willing to put in the work and make stuff yourself, then it can be very, very sustainable. Just due to the breadth and the vastness of the lore and the world. As the book is right now, and with the amount of like the characters and things like that, I would say it's going to be lower. So like the 6 range. Because the characters are unique in some ways, but not extremely unique. And then the monster manual, as we kind of said, is very limited. So you would have to make a lot of stuff on your own. So if you guys were into the world, into the lore, if you were willing to put the time in to make things, then it could be played for a long time with the different tiers and the different ranges and things like that. But that's everything about Wrath and Glory. Does anyone have kind of last minute things they want to add, or
do we want to share our overall scores, like the quote unquote dice that we assigned to this, or did no one else do that?
I did that in my brain.
I gave it an overall score of Warhammer 40k out of 10. If you like Warhammer 40k, dive into it. You'll probably enjoy it. If you're not familiar at all with Warhammer 40k and you're looking for a role-playing game, just in general, I think there are stronger sci-fi games out there that you could play. Mm-hmm. But if you are wanting to get into Warhammer 40k and you want a role-playing game system and you want to dip your toes into it, I would say that this may be a place to get your feet wet, especially with Cubicle 7's remake, because it looks like it's actually going to be a very promising RPG.
What dice would you give?
What dice would I give it?
Have we explained to you, Danny, like why we're using dice for the overall score thing? Like the big
I have not heard it. My guess is bigger is better.
Well, bigger means more potential, right? Because it's still possible to roll a 1 on any dice. But just more potential for like fun and enjoyment in a tabletop RPG.
Right now, Wrath and Glory, using its main dice, I'm going to say a D6. But hopefully, with Cubicle 7, I'd give it like a D12.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where they go with it.
So I give this a D8. It's great. Like, again, as we can probably all entirely agree, this is good, maybe even great for those who love Warhammer 40k, but really big learning curve for most people for the game itself and for the setting. So it is possible to have decent fun with this. Honestly, I thought we had decent fun with this. But as someone who's not as into like Warhammer stuff as maybe Tyler is, I've played Warhammer campaigns before and I have enjoyed them, even not knowing a lot about them. So that's why I say D8. Like you could have fun, even with some limited knowledge, but still not. You could do better if you, especially if you're not a Warhammer 40k fan.
For me, I give it a D10. I think a lot of the complaints that we have are reduce themselves down to like 3 major issues. And that's 1, organization of the book, which impedes learning curve. 2, just complexity and rules in general. And 3, prohibitive expansiveness of the universe. So I think if you like what they've said already, if you like Warhammer 40k, I think this is a good game. I think if the game were to have been edited in general, like spell check or organization check, it could have been a huge difference. And I think the complexity of the game was an issue, but at the same time, it was a really cool thing to see as well, because the complexity made it clunky, but it was also what made it most interesting to me. So I gave it a D10 because I think there's still a lot of potential in the game itself.
I did a D10 also.
Whoop.
I thought it was just kind of in the mid-range, like a B tier, maybe C tier game.
Mm.
Fun in what it's good at, combat. The character creation was kind of more in depth, but kind of lacking with we said formatting and rules. But really fun. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I like Warhammer 40k, and so I was excited to play this. I'm excited to see where Cubicle 7 takes it. They make pretty good stuff from what I hear, like the Lord of the Rings 5e stuff. So I'm pumped. So I'll probably get it when it comes out, and then I'll read through it and tell you if it's an improvement. But yeah, that's everything from the consensus. Is kind of a D10, D8 range, D6 if you're not maybe into Warhammer that much. Overall,
D4 if you don't like rolling, and D2 if you really don't like games in general.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope you guys like the season. We hope you kind of learn about the game, the rules, the mechanics. So if you do want to learn how to play, you can do it and miss a lot of the mistakes we made. But yeah.
Don't contact us if you want to learn how to play the game.
I mean,
and also don't contact the game developers because they won't help you.
Yeah, I think I tried reaching out to them, be like, "Hey, we're gonna test your game." Like nothing. So
Well, now they've felt the wrath of our glorious podcast.
Exactly.
Oh.
Got him. So that's all. That's Wrath and Glory in a nutshell. We hope you guys love the season. We enjoyed playing it, and we're excited for the next season of all of the mini games and beta games that we're going to be testing. So if I remember correctly, the next stuff is going to be Nick is going to be running the Flying Circus game, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, again, it's not that I'm going to be the GM for the next season. I'm going to be the first GM of the next season.
Yes.
I think we have actually talked about in a previous episode or somewhere, maybe Spencer and I did in our character creation thing, about what we're going to do in our next season. But yeah, I will be GMing Flying Circus, which is a game made by Erica Chappell at open_sketchbook on Twitter. So I'm really excited about that one.
Would you mind doing mine next? I don't remember the name of the game or the developer.
It's like
So yeah, Spencer will do A Cool and Lonely Courage, which is a game by Alex White, at @NAlexWhite on Twitter. You can also find the game on plainsailinggames.com, plain spelled as PLAINE. Yeah, there's that. And then, I know we have two more, but I can't remember which was next. Power Outage or they came from Planet Earth.
Ty was going to hit us out with Power Outage.
Yeah,
Power
I'm doing
Outage
Power Outage.
by @BBarce, BEBARCE. And then I guess we were talking about Dani doing They Came from Planet Earth, because that's a very small, short
like
one-shot thing.
One-shot deal. It's like 2 pages.
It's literally a 2-page RPG.
If my life it makes it possible, then I will be doing that. I would love to. It sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Always
It does
is.
look really wild. But yeah.
And we're looking into ideas for season 7. There are a couple of games that I've suggested to the rest of the guys previously that I think is cool. Actually, there were 3, but they didn't like one of them, which I understand.
A personal issue.
You didn't want to do the Jane Austen one, which I get.
Sounds boring.
I don't think it sounds
Anyway.
boring. I just
Mr.
disagree
Dawson.
with Jane Austen as a writer.
That's fine.
I thought it was
That's totally
boring
fine.
sounding.
I am a very dainty female, and I need a male to take care of me in these trying times.
So that's not on there. But I like Iron Sworn and Happiest Apocalypse on Earth, and I am open to other suggestions. But those are the 2 that I have on my short list right now for season 7,
Woo-hoo.
the one after this next one.
Yeah, so we'll reach out to everybody, see if they have any other ideas. I know there was someone said the Witcher RPG. There's a few other ones.
I did notice that.
So we'll keep an eye out on what you guys submit, and we'll kind of post stuff every week to see if you guys want to throw out new ideas. But thank you for joining us. We're always grateful to have some awesome listeners. And
don't forget to wash your hands.
Don't get that corona.
Hello, I'm Dr. Discord, and I have one question for you. Are you evil? Do you find yourself secretly rooting for the bad guy? Do you find yourself suppressing a little chuckle when somebody else slips and falls? Do you find yourself secretly wishing for global domination? If you answered yes to any of these questions, check out Unnecessary Evil Podcast, where we discuss all things evil, from tips on how to write a better villain to tips on how to be a better villain. I probably won't even leave any booby traps this time. Part of the Necropodicon Network. Necropodicon. Hard to pronounce, easy to listen.
Dun, da, 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 da.